cold opens? I don't. All right. Hey, welcome to your weekly corner Späti. It's me, Kieran. I'm joined by Nick.
Hello.
And today we are joined by writer and organizer Michael Sappir. Hello, Michael.
Hey there.
You're back again.
Writer and organize?
What?
Right, you said writer and organize.
Traditionally pronounced organizer.
Organizer.
It's actually how it's pronounced in Ireland. Correcting how I pronounce things is colonialism. Writer and organizer. Enunciating. Sorry, I got distracted by the video of Kamala Harris saying the wheels on the bus go round and round. Great video if you haven't seen it. She sings the melody wrong. It's brilliant. All right, so we are going to be talking about the rise of the AfD and what you at home can do about it. Spoilers, nothing. But before that, we have some news, including some investigative journalism done by an amazing reporter with the name of, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Tucker Carlson.
I was waiting.
I think
for
it's Swedish.
I was waiting for something legitimate.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what about it?
Well, you watched it.
I watched the whole thing so that then I realized that we didn't have to do an episode on it.
Yeah, we don't.
So
it's not the whole episode. Strap in for 5 minutes of analysis, gang.
I mean, if you want to watch Vladimir Putin make fun of Tucker Carlson and just he doesn't get it, then yeah, it's great. If you want,
But
I
think,
a history lesson.
I think if you were just like on social media, you just probably saw those clips, and now you don't need to watch
you don't need to watch it.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing that I don't know if a lot of people, like, if this got reposted a lot, where like Tucker Carlson just starts asking Putin about the like divine, and like he's like, do you see God working in the world? Like, do you see?
That did get posted. He just responds with like, no.
It very much is. It really is. I do love the glimpses of Tucker Carlson that come out that are like, you forget that he is kind of a dead-eyed like Christian evangelical. He isn't so much, but he's so like American that there is this like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, Vladimir Putin's doing God's work. Like,
He needs.
let me ask him about it.
He needs Putin to be like George W. Bush and the whole like God told me to invade Iraq stuff.
Yeah.
Which Putin is not that person.
I don't know if in the sense that then if it's Tucker Carlson himself believes that, or if it's just that he knows that he's just like, playing to his audience of like, is Putin is he doing God's work in the world? Is Putin our George W. Bush? I guess
Yeah, which is like the desperate search to try and get the American right on like one page regarding what they think of Putin.
Yeah. Other than that, dog shit.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
You see any of the
Not at
clips?
all.
Oh god.
It actually did not even cross my feed substantially.
Oh no.
I know it happened, but that's
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
just I think that you mentioned that like, oh yeah, Tucker Carlson like just landed in Moscow or whatever.
Yeah.
Some crap like that last episode. I'm like, oh god.
I'm subscribed to the Politico newsletter. I get 4 emails a day of complete bullshit. And that was one of them. The other ones are like the power couples of Paris 2024 for Valentine's Day. I read that.
With just like random
Essential.
like just random people in Paris, or was it like in the French government? Is everyone dating each other?
People in substance in government, whether it's like local, national, whatever, who are married to like another person in government.
Of course. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Thank you.
One exception, because I don't think she has an official government role, which is Macron's wife.
Oh.
Yeah, his teacher, former teacher. No, that's libel, but problematic age gap woman. Let's just say that.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So they were number one power couple of Paris 2024. Keep an eye on this young upstart called Macron, president of France, Europe's leading military power.
Oh, Politico's so fucking nerdy.
Oh, it's real stupid. It's been a great one.
Because
for
I
Politico.
thought that it was going to be like whatever the like French equivalent is of like, I don't know what like the American tabloid even is of like celebrity things, but like the French version of that seems like it'd be kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
I bet that those power couples are pretty powerful in
I mean-
the Paris scene of, I don't know what, smoking and wearing turtlenecks. Like
I got the Brussels equivalent one. I still haven't read through it, but it does seem to be a bunch of people who propose to each other in the parliament.
That's the whole thing?
Yeah,
Like,
apparently.
multiple
Well,
couples?
it was enough to make a listicle.
Like parliamentarians proposing to each other.
Various bureaucrats as well.
God, that is so fucking lame.
Yeah.
Europe sucks.
It does a bit. Speaking of, before we move away from the Tucker Carlson interview, the last thing we got was a quote from Putin about how he feels about the interview, which is, quote, "I honestly thought he would be aggressive and ask tough questions. I wanted that because I would have given tough answers back."
No, he wouldn't have. Vladimir Putin always does the same answer, which is ask someone else. I've seen Putin do interviews too much, but Putin does this tactic where he'll just like go and he like the way that he did Tucker Carlson's interview is pretty normal, where he just like throws a bunch of facts out and then like people will ask him questions and then his answer half the time is go ask somebody else. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. He never raises his voice. He's not like a guy that I would imagine would do a confrontational interview.
No.
Yeah.
You're not gonna see Vladimir Putin on World Star Hip Hop anytime soon. I'm sorry.
That would be fun. But anyway, moving on. We have to talk about, unfortunately, the Netherlands. Our favorite country, our favorite neighbor, our friends in the West, as Putin would say, the Dutch. Their coalition building is not going well. No one wants it to, because it would basically mean Prime Minister Geert Wilders and his like ban all mosques party. But one of the coalition partners has pulled out for what I would consider one of the like nerdiest reasons. We talked about it briefly when the Dutch elections happened, but there is a party in the Netherlands, a new party called New Social Contract, which does feel like an American making a parody of a European party name. That's like the Walking to Freedom Party, the We're All Happy Party, etc. New Social Contract is led by a guy called, pronouncing this wrong almost certainly, Peter Omtzigt. And Peter Omtzigt is left this coalition building not because of like any of the reasons that we would like find Geert Wilders kind of like objectionable, not for like any of the like Muhammad drawing contests that like Geert Wilders would throw. Although I guess his deputy party leader would throw those. Peter Omtzigt left because of their budget plans.
Are you sure that he like just wasn't like a lost member of the CDU who just like just ended up in the Netherlands just with like severe amnesia and just like walked into parliament one day?
It does give that kind of vibe of like a very centrist kind of like Merkelist CDU party member who like is very much out of time and out of place. I'm sure the Dutch make people like that too, but like, so the reason he has in the past opposed things like the deportation of Muslims and the banning of mosques and head coverings, but like not really because of any kind of moral reason, but rather it's unconstitutional and it would be a headache to pass legislation. But he's a very interesting kind of conservative politician, because the reason he wants the reason he differs with Wilders' party is that they want to do like austerity. They're very similar to what we'll talk about later, the AfD, and this whole like pretending to champion the working class, distressed middle class kind of vote, but really having the like same hyper austerity politics that like a lot of other, well, like basically recreating the mess that led us to this moment. That's what Wilders is like. Peter Omtzigt is kind of like that Merkelist CDU party of like, well, we have to build train tracks. That's what gets the cars from Wolfsburg to the ports. Like my friends in Volkswagen need infrastructure to make me rich kind of conservative. So like, yeah, Peter Omtzigt left because he believes in reintroducing the wealth tax or implementing a stricter wealth tax in the Netherlands to like not have the whole thing fall apart, basically, just to kind of keep the lights running. And that's why he left. So
that's really fucking nerdy. I was expecting something way more dramatic, and you let me down the Dutch.
So are they going to have a coalition now?
No. So this is the problem. So yeah, they're a weird. That party's kind of weird. They're like Christian democratic. They call themselves communitarian, which is basically like social welfare, but like don't be gay is kind of like basically the ideology there. Like, we will give you payment and we will support you financially, but like we're still very, very conservative. Whereas Wilders is more like, we're very, very conservative and we want to like destroy the economy in a way that we think will work. So they've left the coalition, and now like there isn't a right-led majority government possible, and either there's like an every party but Geert Wilders party kind of like coalition.
Oh, Italy, baby.
Yeah, kind of like a 4 parties, including like the center right and center left that used to be like the 2 default parties of the Netherlands working together, which that's happened in Germany but doesn't seem possible in the Netherlands currently. Other option is like an election again. But weirdly, and I only found this out today, the Netherlands has never called a snap election.
Wow.
Yeah, they've always managed to like make a coalition work. However, they have had the record of technically not having a government for 299 days of like coalition building.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, but never called a snap election.
It's like out of tradition. No, we can't call another election. We just have to like, bear through it for an entire year.
Yeah, basically. And also like the current polling is everyone would eat shit except for Geert Wilders, who would like gain dramatically.
That's crazy.
If there was an election tomorrow. So yeah.
So there's no way they'll all agree to that.
No, they're not going to agree to that. Absolutely not. Yeah, so that's the Netherlands. That's what they're up to there. And that kind of nicely brings us on to our main topic, which is the rise of the AfD. Because I think on the show we've been talking for a while about like where the AfD is sitting in the polls. For a while, we've kind of like, it has been this shadow over a lot of like internal discussions within Germany for a while. But we haven't really talked about how that happened, and we haven't really talked about what is to be done about it, because options for combating this are not great at the moment. So I'm going to turn it to you, Michael. How did we get here? Like, why are the AfD doing this?
Damn. I'm not sure I really have a like comprehensive analysis of that.
No worries. So hang on. I've got for everyone to establish tone. This is a very serious conversation.
No,
Don't
it is a
worry
very
about
serious conversation. I think it's I think that the interest has been sparked again into this. We've talked about it briefly on a couple of occasions regarding like the protests recently, specifically talking about the very odd array of the current situation, with Germany and its relationship to Israel and, its attitude towards Palestinian activists and such like that. At these protests, we focused on this aspect, but haven't really, gone deeper into them, the sense of one, how did the AfD, a party that then kind of, that we've talked about on multiple occasions, has like started as this kind of like odd, like hyper neoliberal party in in its founding in, I believe it's 2013. Yeah. To where we are now, where they're I think they're at close to 30% in the polls and some things.
No, they're around 20 now.
20 now. Okay,
Yeah.
There was
Nationally.
a period. Yeah.
Nationally,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's differences.
Oh
in
yeah.
Turing
There's
and,
yeah.
In
Turing.
Turingen,
Yeah.
they're significantly above 20%.
So, yeah. Could you, I guess, then, I mean, like go, I guess one of the easiest ways is maybe just like to break down, like, how do we get from a weird, funky 2013 neoliberal project to then a 20% quasi, can we say the F word? Fascist party?
I think legally, no.
No, yeah.
No.
Some of them are legally.
Some of them
allowed to be
like
called
are
fascist.
legally
So
fascist.
a party with fascists in it.
Yes, a party with
And yeah,
fascists in it.
I think,
yes.
and also like worth making the distinction of like, because they often get compared with Fratelli d'Italia, which is like considered post-fascist because it's founded by people who were a part of like the Mussolini continuation movement of like what MSI, Movimento Sociale Italia, or it's also different to like the FPU in Austria, which was literally founded by SS members, which that I think is you can call fascist continuation in some way. There's a more direct connection, whereas like starting in 2013 is at least a little bit like a thread has been severed between the very real fascist past of Germany and what has been made here, other than like, you know, echoes of it and people glorifying it or whatever. But
and like one of the leaders being the granddaughter of Hitler's finance minister.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Yeah,
all right, scrap everything I said.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's his granddaughter. You know, she wasn't in the government herself.
Yeah.
She was a little too young for that.
Yeah, there wouldn't be.
But I mean, I gather, you know, I haven't been there, but I gather that there have always been like two at least main like contingents inside this party. One of which has often been described as like national conservative or national liberal or something like that. And one which is more clearly folkish, you know, like ethno-nationalist.
Right.
You know, one of the most prominent representatives of that stream is Björn Höcke, which is the one who we're legally allowed to call fascist. A court has determined.
Hell yeah.
And
we need to have like a whiteboard like, of things we're allowed to say on the podcast.
And you know, over the past decade, we've had Germany's, you know, constitutional watchdogs classifying more and more parts of the party and more individuals in it as you know, anti-constitutional or right-wing extremists or whatever euphemisms they want to use. But the party has continued to kind of play this balancing act between these two different things and kind of hasn't too massively stepped in it to like really get shut down publicly.
But they're kind of like racking up the German equivalent of yellow cards, basically. Like being on the Verfassungsschutz watch list is kind of like I know. Stop it, kind of.
Yeah, and I mean, Höcke's organization within the party, the wing, the Flügel, was like officially like dismantled by the Verfassungsschutz. Like it was declared an illegal organization and officially doesn't exist anymore since I think 2020.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like he's still the head of the party in Thüringen, where the party is likely to be part of the next coalition because, according to current polling, at least there's no way to build a coalition without them there.
I really do love this very traditional German solution to this problem of like, we've gotten rid of the organization. All the same guys are here, but the organization technically doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think even some of the guys got kicked out of the party because the party has occasionally kicked people out for being, you know, too obviously problematic.
Sure.
So it's kind of walking the tightrope and kind of making sure not to get burned. And managing to really play to like a lot of different contingents. You know, they have some billionaires giving them money in illicit and licit ways. Also multiple kind of waves of revelations about that over the years. And they also managed to kind of position themselves as like the voice of the working class and of the middle class at the same time somehow. While, as you said, like their actual program is very anti-poor and very pro-rich.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so like one of those rich people who's kind of like behind this now is like what the Backwerk guy, who's like, what is the American equivalent of Backwerk for like British people? It would be like Greggs, like the guy who owns like the German equivalent of Greggs is now like funding the far right in this country. Is there like an American equivalent?
No, it'd just be like Dunkin' Donuts or something. But
yeah, I guess.
Because Americans don't eat dough if it's
we
not
don't. Yeah,
fried.
exactly.
When you compare it to Dunkin' Donuts, it does make Backwerk seem very sad. Dunkin' Donuts is bright and colorful.
Yeah, Backwerk is like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, like if there is a place like that in the
savory
US,
Dunkin' Donuts.
yeah, it's like zhuzhed up a bit more.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we don't have like that. The idea of something like Backwerk is a little bit too sad for the United States. Like, I mean, the U.S. is very sad in its own way, but just like a shop that just like sells dry croissants and that isn't a gas station is like a bit odd.
Sad Panera bread.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, what if Panera bread was made by Aldi? I guess is the way of viewing it.
And I'm very curious about like how they've managed to appeal to that like working class, middle class thing, because you see like a phenomenon that you would see in a lot of other comparable countries. I'm particularly thinking of like the UK, is this idea that like Brexit Party or UKIP or whatever they were called, or BNP even before that, appealed to the working class. But this would always be like very much a media creation. It's the kind of like British or German equivalent of like a guy who owns every dealership in like 3 states, but he wears a stencil and listens to country music, is like calls himself working class in the United States. Of like, I have the aesthetics of working class. Like in the UK, it was very common that like people who voted for like something like UKIP would like wear a flat cap, would have like a whippet dog with them, would enjoy things like greyhound races and stuff like that, but like are a landlord and like are very wealthy. They just don't have like an Oxford accent. Whereas Germany, it seems like maybe I'm falling for that trick. Like put anything, like you could put the Queen in a flat cap and the British press would think it's working class, but like, have they actually appealed to the working class, like actual poor people in Germany, or is it again another trick?
I tend to think it's a mix, but like more on the trick side. Like clearly there are a lot of people who are not well off, who support this party, and like the fact that it's so successful in the impoverished East, you know, is connected to that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like the main like source of their support is in the working class.
Right.
And there is like the media does play a really big role in this by just you know, we have these like, we have Die Bild and Springer in general kind of designing a discourse in which the kind of, you know, thing that AfD is selling works really well. They give them a lot of attention, and they kind of position them as answering to something that the public already wants.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that the tabloid kind of populism type of stuff, of like this kind of feedback loop. If I say what's in Bild, because Bild represents the working class, but like at no point anyone actually verifies any of this, and you'd look at polling and it wouldn't necessarily be true.
When do you kind of see then kind of going onto this like working class aesthetic? Because even like regardless of the politics, I guess, of the actuality of like the CDU was still always kind of able to pull a working class type of voter. Maybe not so much as like, you know, there is like the true SPD voter who is probably likely a member of like a union or something like that. There is like that stereotype to a degree up until very recently has been quite true historically. But the CDU still wasn't like without a good portion of like working class Germans. Like I think the CDU is like a bigger example of like a Big Ten conservative party that they always had, that had a kind of more, you know, I don't want to say like vibrant class, you know, but like, you know, had different, you know, I would say more class difference in it than the SPD. But where does then this break of, because the CDU kind of always played into this, you know, like Bild friendly rhetoric forever, you know, that was always up until maybe like Merkel's, you know, I was about to say presidency. You know, her chancellorship, whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
There was really kind of this like hand-in-hand thing that Bild Zeitung was always kind of like more or less pro-CDU, pro-conservative. What, like, is this the like so-called refugee crisis that then creates this kind of rift within this, where the AfD is kind of allowed to form up out of this kind of like Springer? I wouldn't say that then that they like controlled the narrative, but yes, the German media has been very instrumental in kind of positioning this working class view. And what period, I guess, recently is the thing that then this kind of allows the AfD to kind of bubble into the menace that they are today? Like, I don't know, because it is kind of like thinking about the like Matthias Döpfner op-ed where he's all like kind of like, yo, I kind of helped create this, but don't vote for them in Politico sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where like what is the moment for Germany where this is like solidified?
Yeah, I do get the impression that was around the crisis in 2015. I mean, at the time I wasn't. I was living back in Israel where I grew up during those years, so I was following this more loosely. But I you know, you can see it in just like in polling numbers and election results that like they were just founded in 2013, and then 2015 came along, and suddenly they were like the party most clearly voicing an opposition to Merkel letting a million refugees into Germany and welcoming them, and this whole like outpouring of welcoming culture across Germany, and you see that like then they have a lot of significant gains electorally in the years right after that, in 2017 especially, and they've been kind of going up and down since then.
That's there's one other aspect of this that I am a little interested in, because the whole dance between like Germany's right wing media in the form of Springer, and I'm sure others, but mostly Springer, with kind of historically like keeping the CDU to like keeping the CDU in line almost is like what it seems like it was doing prior to the rise of the AfD, like Bild kind of doing like the deport them all kind of headlines was there to people in like Werte Union or whatever would be like, yeah, great, but like the Merkel kind of wing of the party was just like a little bit like the kind of like Putin dismissive answer of like, I don't know about all that, kind of. But that would be their response to it, but it stopped them from drifting to the what you would call the left for the CDU, not like radical or anything, but like it is very telling that now that Merkel's gone, that like whole wing of that party just seems to be completely like fucking toothless, and it is just the rise of all the people who have been kind of captured by like Bild headlines or like we need to be concerned with the AfD is eating into our vote share, blah blah blah, and thus we become the AfD. We saw that with like in the UK again, where like this rise of a right-wing force to the right of the Tories just kept the Tories kind of insane or kind of further to the right or pushed them right even in a lot of cases. I'm kind of curious if any thoughts about that, but also like because is Berlin East Germany? I don't know. For tax reasons it is, but like sometimes it is and has a different character to a lot of the other like East German cities. And I'm also curious with this other thing, which is maybe not working class but is mostly East German rage, because I remember hearing that criticism of Die Linke, and like these are two parties that did quite well both in the East, of like this criticism of Die Linke that it's not a working class party, it is an East German rage party. It is one of the few parties in Germany that actually told the East Germans, yes, the situation you're in is shit, rather than what has been kind of like the consensus amongst CDU, SPD, and some other parties that like reunification was great, everything worked, we just got to keep going. And I am wondering, does that play into this supposed working class character of, because a lot of East Germans are working class, of course, but like,
and I think like the it's important to understand like that East German rage and the frustration over how so-called reunification happened has like really like clear class lines to it. Like what happened was you had it had a lot of serious issues, of course, but there was a society with like a strong industrial base and full employment, and people were working for a very long time in industries that some of which could have easily been competitive, but all of this was just sold off very, very quickly for peanuts, and then shut down by the Western competitors that bought it up, and just throwing masses of people into unemployment. And that's a class experience. That's not a regional experience. That's just mass unemployment and economic domination, throwing them into despair. So I think it is important to see that as a class thing itself.
Yeah, the one like with the whole like industries being destroyed, the one that will always stick in my memory is like this New York Times article around the time of like Treuhand and stuff that talked about like, I think it was in Rostock, where like a publisher was bought and all of their books were burnt and all
Jesus
that. 'Cause-
Christ.
Yeah, and it wasn't
Germany.
I know.
Germany.
We just love doing it.
Books are for reading, okay?
But I'm so cold. Yeah, but like but when you get further into the article, when it gets into a bit more detail, it's like it's revealed that like it's not even like books titled like the Marxist perspective on the fascist West Germans or anything like that. There's just like fantasy books about like a boy meeting a magical horse or some
boy.
shit for like kids. And it's like this you could have sold this to like West Germans just as easily.
Yeah. It's really one of those moments where like the economic logic is just like kill the competition. It's not like make use of resources. Like these were fully functional factories. Some of them were actually pretty advanced. You know, some were not so advanced, obviously.
The unbreakable glass thing as well. I don't know how true that is, but I just the we made a form of unbreakable glass.
I'm pretty sure that's true. Yeah.
God fucking damn it.
Until recently, I was living in Leipzig, in Saxony, in the east. Like that's the only place I lived in Germany.
My glass never broke. All I can say.
Like I bumped into that kind of glass. But this thing was everywhere.
Just the terrible like realism of just like living in like a terrible East German town is just like some guys who've been turned fascist by all of history's events throwing a glass bottle at you and it doesn't break. It's like, ah.
No, but one of the sad things is like, I mean, I always aesthetically really loved like these, you know, old industrial areas, and they're kind of like run down, and there's like trees growing out of buildings and shit, and like I love how that looks, and I love the symbolism of it. But then, like I was walking by one of these beautiful buildings in the west of Leipzig last summer, and there was a fire in there actually, and I started looking up on Wikipedia like what this place was, and like you find out this was just like a thriving factory that was just like suddenly shut down in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And that's like that's the backstory of all these places.
I was like, this factory actually built happiness. I was like, oh damn it, why? Yeah, and then like there's other things that we can point to with the divide of like East and West Germany is like there doesn't seem to be any modern companies that come from the East or are headquartered in the East. There doesn't seem to be any modern East German like billionaires. Versus like the West German billionaires. There are people in East Germany who are comfortable for sure, but like there's this very clear divide of like people are probably familiar with like shock doctrine and what happened to places like Poland or Russia. That just happened kind of like internally in Germany. The buyer was also German. Was kind of the thing. We're one people now.
But that like, you know, that regional difference is very noticed like through this kind of like class prism in the East, that like, you know, a lot of the bosses, a lot of the professors, not a lot, like practically all of the like owners and in the universities, the professors are from West Germany, and they were just like brought in.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah, sorry. And I no, that's going off too off topic, but like, actually, I'm bringing it up quickly. We watched the I'm with Herkel documentary. That
yeah.
The
like,
what?
there was a documentary.
The Angela Merkel
it was just called Merkel.
Netflix documentary.
But it was very like the
I'm with
Hillary
Herkel.
Clinton. It was English language. It was a Hillary Clinton kind of like media empire kind of documentary, and it really wanted to push the angle of her being like the first woman in politics. But what it ended up accidentally doing was actually talking about like this was probably the last and most powerful person in Germany who was sympathetic to East Germany. Because like every clip they showed of like someone trying to like talk to her about East Germany, someone from the West trying to get her to like condemn it as this awful place, she'd always go like, yeah, things were bad, but also like it's where I had my first kiss and like where I played ball as a kid. Like it's not like a terrible place or whatever. And like it's very funny because that whole documentary is just not willing to touch that narrative at all, but it's just like so clear.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other episode that we could have as well too, of like the concept of like the Unrechtsstaat. That like East Germany was just like this illegitimate state, but I mean it's an illegitimate state according to, you know, obviously West Germany, and surprise West Germany won. But in that regard,
the other thing with the I'm with Herkel documentary was they had like a bunch of English speaking talking heads to talk about like Merkel's life, but they also had a lot of people like German talking heads, people who were like the head of like FATS and stuff like that, or editors at FATS, and I had to like after I realized this was happening, I had to pause the movie anytime someone's name came up who was German, find out where they were born, and it was all West Germany.
Yep.
You know,
how does then also, I mean, kind of getting back onto the AfD as well, because I mean, I think that then everyone points to the boogeyman though of the of the East. And while there is, there is obviously some, I think, reality of whether it be then that the Die Linke or the AfD is the party of Eastern, I must say Eastern European, East German rage.
Yeah.
They have a very strong foothold there. However, it wasn't. I think that then the attention also gets taken away from that. Also within West Germany, particularly in like NFV, the AfD has been quite popular as well. This isn't. I mean, it wasn't just only an East German problem. There's been the AfD has been successful in pretty much every election now. And yes, okay, I guess like the first wave was the East, but there was also at the same time in the NFV local elections, the state elections.
The big one that was a shock to everyone was Bavaria.
Yeah, but that was recent. There was a
recent.
Bavarian election before that where the AfD was still
Ate shit.
Yeah, where the AfD ate shit, and everyone's like, okay, well, the CSU is just far right enough to keep them, at bay. And they also had the Freie Wähler, who were kind of those, whatever kind of goofballs they are down there. But for example, in NRV, particularly on like the Ruhrgebiet and whatnot, if I'm not mistaken, the AfD has also been quite popular there as well in other areas that then's also been hit quite dramatically economically within more recent years because of German I guess Germany's export economy shrinking. So there is clearly in some regard like an appeal, regardless of how true it is or not, kind of back to that, is it smoke and mirrors of class politics or not? It gets like the attractions there, and it seems to then be around this I mean, what is I don't know if I have to ask the question because it seems very obvious. The AfD stirs up a lot of, right-wing boogeyman fears that do play into this politic quite well. Like that's just obvious, no?
Yeah, that's been like the centerpiece of their politics, is really centering migration and their like opposition to immigration and really their opposition to diversity in all its forms. And I think the media has been really instrumental in that because a more critical media that wanted to actually like shine a light on what this party is promoting, could be forcing the issue of talking about their economics, talking about their their gender politics, whatever, all the things that like might not appeal so much to so many people. But the media really seems eager to keep the focus on immigration. And that ends up playing into also the way that other parties are relating to it, because instead of them, being able to really undercut it on other issues, they end up kind of chasing after the line that Bild and AfD are putting out there, and matching their politics, bit by bit. They're not there yet, but they've definitely moved really far right on migration in the past decade.
Oh, that's also, maybe this gets into our topic of like almost AfD realism kind of thing of like nearly so many parties have been pushed on this issue to kind of like adopt what would have be seen as a AfD kind of talking point ages ago. Like, so Berlin just had like some local, it was reserved to a handful of districts, but it was federal elections, wasn't it? It was like
we had to revote for the Bundestag
due to the fact that some people ran around and it scared the Germans. Is my understanding of what happened.
You mean the marathon?
I mean the marathon. That's what happens. People ran around.
I was scratching my head here too.
Some people ran around. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right.
Accurate factual description.
Yeah. Top tier political analysis.
You're gonna tell me someone was chasing the Germans, but
with a big sack.
Yeah, this is even sadder.
Some Brothers Grimm ass monsters be like, get in the sack. Anyway, but more is what I was getting to is like there was some election posters around again for federal elections, and as much as I hate and kind of think that they are monsters in a very particular way, the FDP posters that were like, we need to get migration under control was like very strange. Like less than 5 years ago, they were they were more strictly libertarian. They were kind of like, yeah, migration is a fine thing. Like you need like free market, baby. Everyone should be allowed to apply for whatever jobs we need filled. And
as long as you have like secondary education.
yeah, like there's a classist element to
Yeah.
it, but like it was classism over racism, basically, was kind of the vibe. And that's changed even now. And then obviously the big one that everyone talks about is the fucking Der Spiegel cover with Olaf
Yeah.
Scholz talking about
Oh,
deporting
boy.
people. And we now really enter into this thing that has worked so well in every other country that's combated this before, definitely not blown up in everyone's face. We defeat the AfD by becoming the AfD.
Yeah.
Woo. That's how did we arrive here? Because in so many countries, migration really does seem like a forced issue, a kind of like a media obsession. But like polling does seem to indicate that the Germans really do care about it. And it's very worrying, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a big part of this is the way austerity is built into German politics, actually.
Right.
Because I mean, I think an easier way to understand this is like, why does a paper like Bild talk about migration all the time? Well, because the people it's trying to talk to are feeling miserable. They're feeling like their life is not great because they don't, have all the nice things they want to have. And it, Axel Springer is not going to start talking about like how we need like, more investment in things that will make people's lives more like pleasant and like, public plenty. And that's just not going, that's not in the program of these billionaire media moguls.
Yeah, Axel Springer always does it in one of the oddest ways where it's like, the poor retired person can only afford this much. And it's like, you made this happen.
You did this.
Yeah, that is a problem. And you are a paper that then has been like
Matthias Döpfner in a hot dog
yeah.
suit. We're all trying to find the guy who did this.
Who did all this?
Yeah.
And I another thing too that I always kind of going back to the general well, the AfD, you're right. All the parties are kind of moving further right to be like, no, I'm the party of migration. No, I was the party of migration first, bro. Like doing that whole thing. But the AfD also hits on, and this seems like maybe I guess you can answer this as well too. Is that then the AfD has really grabbed onto the culture war. And you mentioned this as well too in the article that I don't think it'll be out quite yet when
it should be, hopefully. I expect it to be on Vashti.
Okay, perfect. Well, we will link to that in the description.
Yes, absolutely.
The AfD really is, I feel, the only party that grabs the culture war in Germany and understands it too, because you see like the CSU and like Söder trying to do the
But said it would do it too in Saxony.
Yeah.
It was very noticeable in Saxony.
but it doesn't stick. They're I mean, it depends. It depends
the
on
guy
who you
who always
ask.
brings it to like a national level and it never seems to work is who's the guy? I keep forgetting his name. The guy who looks like he's 12.
From the CDU.
Yeah. Shit, what was his name again? He looks like a turtle that's been turned to a human being.
Oh, I
which
think I know what you mean.
Yeah, you do.
Philip Amthor.
Amthor. Yeah.
Because Philip Amthor, if I'm also not mistaken, was also part of was Werte Union and shit like that as well too. That would make
not
sense
surprise me.
if he's like also into he tries to do the whole.
Well, because he's young, he's expected to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and the young there is like the TikTok generation of, I mean, he's a bit older, but he's trying to appeal to that generation of the whole culture war thing of anti woke politics. But even
he does those things for the CDU where it's like join the CDU gaming stream and he's holding like an Xbox controller like a bear holds a baby.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
like you've never touched one of these before in your life.
Okay, aside from posting CDU members like Philip Amthor, the AfD, at least from what it seems like, is the party that then really grabbed onto this anti-woke agenda more so than others and have made it into has really implemented it into party politics. And what is kind of then I mean, Germany, I guess, is weird because it's always there's always a culture war. It feels like that there's going on in one way or the other. But how is this message, I guess, then of the AfD is this one of the factors that then makes them resonate more? Is there I mean they're very adamant about gender politic and stuff like that. how does this play into then like the repertoire of them? Because I mean, to everyone else, they look like a normal right-wing party, But in the German sense, they like managed. I don't know. They managed to do something differently with it, and actually seems like turn this general fervor that then German media, I guess, has also been stirring up, but the other parties can't really grasp onto,
Mm-hmm. I don't really know how much of like a big factor that is. I will say that it seems to me like an extension of something you see from the fringe far right parties more, from like actual clear neo-Nazis and things like that, where they're like really out to drum up fear of the radical left. And just with the AfD, like actually I guess all of these, they want to kind of paint the radical left as starting from the Greens or maybe from the SPD or even the left wing of the CDU potentially.
Wokest Merkel.
Yeah. Which I think plays a really important role, because it's like scaring people away from like the part of the political spectrum that's actually offering any kind of solution to their day-to-day problems, and like drawing attention to things that I don't think are right, but like I understand that people are frustrated. They need to reconsider how they talk about things to people, the way they write, whatever.
Yes.
But like
I love we need to do an episode on this. I love when culture war comes to countries with grammatical gender.
Yeah.
That's a whole other level of like, grammatical gender is the same as natural gender. I'm going to talk about it. Salads are boys, soups are girls. That's how I was raised. Eggs are something else. There's a third gender in language, but there isn't in real life. I've squared that circle. I love it.
Yeah, like I guess you're very much right on that point of now that I'm thinking of it, of like there is the AfD really has like also, along with the CDU, the anti-Ampel sentiment, but I think it's like climate change is the one where the AfD is also very adamant of like, oh yeah, we want to keep our cars, and I guess the FDP is, but the FDP is currently in a coalition with the party who ideologically doesn't very well see eye to eye with them on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been kind of, I think the climate stuff we saw mostly with the federal elections, where like I think like the AfD had posters of like basically the Greens logo, but it was like a gun or something. I can't quite remember what it was, but like
the Greens logo, but it's also the RAF logo.
Yeah, like they had no idea what they were doing, but like they had decided because like 2 years before the federal election happened, everyone was like, oh, green wave in Germany, and that turned out to be kind of like a bit of a wet squib. And then like the AfD had decided their target was the Greens, and then of course February 2022 rolls around and the whole fucking game has changed, and now they've merged that kind of like anti-green transition politics very nicely into God, the heating bills are so fucking high now discussion, which has benefited them quite well, it seems.
Yeah, but again, like I think austerity plays such a key role in all this, the structuring the whole debate. It's all about like, how do we address people's grievances without spending any more than we're already spending? In fact, how do we do it while cutting social spending? And the way to do that is to point the finger at like some group of people that you want to exclude from getting any access to any of the resources.
Remember those Turkish people who built the whole fucking country for you? Fuck them. And it's very. I'm going to throw this question to the more German speakers in the room, because I'm living here like a blissful idiot. But like,
God bless you,
right now, you are the lucky one.
It rules. But like, it does. Do people talk about in discourse in political debates about austerity negatively? Because ever since like 2008, ever since like the Cameron, like Tory Lib Dem government in the UK, austerity became this really big like talking point of everyone to the left of like, this sucks, this fucking sucks, and the solution by anything to the right of that who wanted to implement austerity was kind of like, don't really talk about it, just do it and don't like brag about it. But Germany seems very different in the whole like cult of Schwarze Null kind of stuff, which is austerity. But I'm not sure if I hear too many like SPD people or like Green people talking about, we need to stop the fucking austerity. And I'm just kind of wondering if that is as big a topic here as it would be in like the UK. America's very similar. They don't talk about austerity all that much either. But like, yeah. Have you seen that?
You mean like naming the word?
Yeah,
or
saying
just
the
like,
thing. Or
no,
calling it by a German
I mean
name.
like on the like the further left, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really. I mean, the SP,
They're not allowed to talk.
yeah, they're not. They're also really kind of not very relevant in the general.
They've got
sense
like
of
the
politics.
IRA, like the Die Linke in public media has the IRA like voice filter on, basically.
Yeah, like
But I mean,
But-
there is just a thing with like austerity being like coded into the Constitution now. I don't remember when
Yeah.
they did this exactly, but it's not that old, right? It's
That's
like,
Merkel's government. Well, she
Right.
was there for 16 years, but yeah.
but yeah, but that in that era, which means it's a pretty it's a pretty radical thing technically to propose
Well, then you're
increasing
anti-con-
spending beyond earnings.
Yeah, because then you're anti-constitutional. Maybe you're washed by the Verfassungsschutz at that point.
you're spending, you're spending too much money. You're being watched by the. That's actually the
Yeah.
coolest reason to be.
Hey, did you invest in a train? You're not being watched by the
You know who else
Verfassungsschutz.
invested in trains?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think though that then in the general sense of politics, Germany, I mean, like the SPD will kind of somewhat ish, depending on which wing of the party it is, talk about that Germany should get rid of things like the Schwarze Null, but they don't end up on the like federal level, I feel. Same thing with like I mean, the Greens up until recently were much, I guess, had a wider range of voices internally until they've kind of just all shut up. It feels like to where then, or they do the thing where they're like, "Oh, I'm sad about what my party's doing, but I'm not gonna leave."
Yeah.
You know. So I don't see that discussion though really at all from any of the major parties.
I do kind of feel like there was a because like a lot of what happened internally in Germany and a lot of other countries upon the like invasion of Ukraine by Russia was this kind of like McCarthyist like reg kind of like trying to crush the left, who people kind of like, or like media just kind of assumed were on the side of Russia whether they were or weren't. And then like the Greens kind of dealt with that quite well by actually like consolidating and like becoming a unified voice. And yeah, I think like on this podcast, even like in 2019 or 2020, we would have said that like the Greens are actually quite different from state to state. Baden-Württemberg Greens versus Berlin Greens are very different beasts. But like now it does kind of feel like they've all like gotten in line. And yeah, this discourse about austerity and certainly NATO has gone away.
Yeah, and I think that also does play into the whole AfD thing, because like that's this thing where like you can have different opinions on this topic, but like there are very clear ways in which Germany's stance on Russia-Ukraine has like not been pro working German people. Like prices of everything have gone up more than they would have had to just because of like the general disruption of a massive war, because Germany placed these massive sanctions on Russia, which used to be its main supplier of energy. And that's an opening generally for oppositional forces, and I think the right has been better at capitalizing on that than the left has been, because the left is split on this for, I think, very understandable reasons, because there is a tricky like thing about this war, about like how to respond to it.
Yeah. And then I guess that leads us to the next part of the article that I am reluctant to talk about, because I feel like we have to talk about it every goddamn week, because it is important, unfortunately, and it's affecting everything. But how the issue of Israel-Palestine has fed into, I guess, the entire German political climate, but the current political climate is that AfD is polling 20%.
Yeah. And the AfD has one of the oddest, I mean, because we've mentioned before that this is a party that then is chock full of a mixed group of people within the, far to extreme right and whatnot. Some of the members were allowed to call them fascists, but you have people who are from, neo-Nazi circles, and you have people who are, also a lot of people from the CDU who are like, they weren't, they weren't real enough for me.
Some people have files in the Verfassungsschutz,
some
people
don't, yeah. But the AfD is also weirdly, I guess it's not weirdly if you understand the trends of like the overall, right, but one of the most pro-Israel parties in Germany, which when you tell that to a person like, oh yeah, our neo-Nazis are pro-Israel, they'll look at you like, what? And it's like, whoa, hold on. How is that? How does a party of, again,
such a rich tradition of anti-Semitism.
yeah.
And a rich present. There are repeated scandals around
sure.
that.
Exactly. Those that literally
maintaining tradition.
Yeah, the amount of opened up WhatsApp and Telegram groups that are connected
the
to
fucking
this.
AfD member of Bavaria who got done in for zig heiling too loud after Leiterstunde or whatever, because he zig heiled too loud after 10 p.m. and that's how he got caught.
Jesus Christ. Well, look, it's not unique to Germany. The far right across the world is not all the far right, of course, and also not all the far right in Germany. I used to live in a neighborhood in Leipzig where some kids would sticker for Der Dritte Weg, which is a neo-Nazi party.
Oh, yeah.
And they were very, very anti-Israel in very clearly Nazi ways.
Yeah.
But the AfD, which is of course the much bigger political force, has taken this kind of approach of outdoing the rest of the parties on being pro-Israel. And then they can always hold that up as their answer when they're accused of being a party of anti-Semites. Oh, well, we have, there's a few bad eggs, but we stand with Israel, and that's what counts. And that's responding to how German politics in general talks about anti-Semitism these days. The key issue is quote unquote standing with Israel, and not you just compare all of what we've been hearing in the past months about anti-Semitism in Germany, primarily being related to Palestinians, compared with just a few months earlier last year, this scandal in Bavaria again, with Aiwanger, who was caught with flyers making fun of the Holocaust.
What a weirdly German scandal.
And could not find it in himself to clearly distance himself from them. He just kind of waffled and gained in the polls afterwards and was allowed to stay in the government.
Yep.
And that whole thing was just forgotten very quickly, very conveniently.
Because he stands with Israel.
Yeah, well,
I think he made a statement after the fact.
I suppose he must, yeah. But also because that kind of anti-Semitism is not the kind of anti-Semitism that that most of the German establishment wants to talk about, and most of these parties are concerned with. They're much more concerned with this geopolitical aspect, which also allows them to kind of align with the U.S. geopolitically and with the West, and kind of position themselves as very much not a continuation of Nazi Germany.
Right. That's it sucks. And it strikes me as very interesting that this conversation seems very delayed in Germany. I mean, the country that needs to have it the most probably, but ever since 2016, after Trump got elected and the media was scrambling to explain why that happened, a person in American kind of stupid politics that gained a lot of attention was Richard Spencer, as this kind of he's kind of a fascist, but he has an undercut. This is how he's reaching the kids because his hair.
A fascist would never have an undercut.
Never. But
Don't look at archival photos.
No, absolutely not. Remembering things is a crime. But he was kind of brought into this limelight, and one of the things that I remember that it feels like Americans who were paying attention to politics were very easy to understood almost intuitively was his support for Israel. Because his kind of explanation of it was well, if there gets to be a Jewish state, then America gets to be a Christian state, kind of thing. Of this, if they get to do it, we get to do it, kind of rationale, which we see all across the far right in all sorts of countries. And
of course, for white supremacists in the rich countries of the West, Israel appears to be at the forefront of their civilizational war against the Muslim world. There's also
the other element which we saw less with Richard Spencer, although I'm sure he probably admitted it, is if Israel exists, it's a great excuse to get rid of the Jews in my country. They get to go there.
Well, that idea has been around in the Western support for Zionism since its very inception in the 19th century.
But it was amazing, that gained media attention. People who were paying attention to politics in 2016, which felt like more people than usual, in the English-speaking world, intuited that very quickly. Oh yeah, I can understand why someone like Richard Spencer would support Israel. I get this line of logic. I don't agree with it, but I get it. And Germany really seems unwilling to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. That the right would ever they can perfectly acknowledge that the AfD is a right-wing party and it does support Israel, but they will maybe see that as a peculiarity rather than like there is like a through line of logic that you can point to and say, yes, there is a reason why they would do this.
Yeah, I can highly recommend a recent like Dig interview with Emily Dischebecker, who talks about
very good, yeah.
Talks about how this whole weirdness in German politics has developed. There's a lot of history there that I think is really illuminating, because this does have a long history. It's not, I mean, the stuff with the far right is more recent, but Germany treating its relationship with Israel as its way to quote unquote atone for the Holocaust, or turn away from National Socialism, or reintegrate into the Western Bloc afterwards. Like that's something that goes back to the 1950s.
Yeah.
The Wiedergutmachung, or whatever the hell it's called.
I hate that word.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Make it all good again. Yeah, it's all good now.
The alleged, I recommend that interview as well, because she brings up an alleged Helmut Kohl quote that is
Konrad Adenauer, I think, no?
Was it Adenauer?
Talking about the power of the Jews in America?
Yeah, and that's why they had to support Israel. Yeah,
because Adenauer, yeah.
Yeah, fuck me.
Yep.
Woo!
That's the most, non-anti-Semitic thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there is like, I guess also too, kind of, I mean, we're I think we're approaching time soon here, and one of the parts I think that then a lot of our listeners are very curious about is that then with the AfD, in a lot of ways it feels like just kind of like becoming the norm of German politics. Just no one wants to say it aloud. It feels like, these protests on the street seem to be not doing too much. It feels like they feel that, at least to me, that Germans can go protest for what the afternoon, pat themselves on the back, and then go back home, because it feels very, there's not really much to lose for them. It's like, I mean, we've had this before with like the Unteilbar protests. It's very like, the vibe is very, too cheery. It feels like everyone's happy about it, but then also this time around, everyone's really racist at these protests. So
yeah,
it's the preaching to the choir element. Like
exactly, yeah,
and like go to the protests who care about them, we're never going to vote for AfD.
Yeah, anyway. and the I mean, it's like the protests have been supported by Frank-Walter Steinmeier, which is always kind of odd when your protest movement is endorsed by the president of the country.
And the prime minister and the vice.
Exactly.
The chancellor and the vice chancellor.
So, it doesn't really seem like that. And we're seeing also, of course, we mentioned the Scholz on the cover of Spiegel being, the deporter in chief, and them going through with a much stricter version of, leniency on deportations. Also, I don't know, for many people outside of Germany, Germany is instituting now like a card payment system for refugees that is incredibly unfair, because a lot of things that refugees pay with is in cash, particularly the places that they frequent, becoming very much adopted by the entire political spectrum. I believe Bodo Ramelow the other day was like, yeah, the card system for refugees is superb. A lot, I mean, even like Die Linke now just endorsing a very quite draconian policy of controlling people's lives who are not here, who are here in a very like precarious position. Exactly. So,
another really disgusting measure in that new law they just passed in January that I just read about yesterday is that they're actually preventing newly arrived asylum seekers from receiving psychological care for 3 years.
That's insane.
Which just seems so extremely counterproductive in their supposed goal of integrating people.
You're from a war zone. You're probably fine mentally, right?
Yeah.
So with then not only just the sense that the AfD is rising, because we can surely say, well, what is to be done about that? It's like, okay, well, don't vote for the AfD and, organize, but the
if you're listening to this podcast, you're going to vote for AfD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The problem seems to be much deeper than that.
Yeah.
It feels like. Where, I guess, optimistically or as pessimistically as you want, where do we go from here? Because I'm It sucks.
Yeah. Look, I'm not a fan of the demonstrations don't do anything line. I think they always do something, even if it's just like giving the people who participate a little bit more like energy to keep going, connecting people, creating a sense for for a certain camp of how much support it has. I think these are really important things.
Sure.
At the same time, I have not been going to these protests, and I'm not sure I would feel comfortable there. And I'm not very optimistic either, because like electorally, like we were just saying, like it's not like there's really any party around that you can like vote for with a clear conscience on these issues.
I know. We all need to vote for that Danish minority rights party.
Yes. I'm sure their opinions are good on everything. But yeah, electorally, it's not really clear that there's any vote that'll answer this. And then there's this whole debate about whether to try to ban the AfD outright, which in the best case will take years in which they'll be even more able to kind of play the underdog who's being bullied by all the big parties. And if that fails for whatever reason, like they will be able to say like, look, we're constitutionally okay, and like that will kind of be the end of the attempt to take them out of the politics. So, yeah, I don't know. Like grassroots work against fascism is still extremely important, and there's work like that to do everywhere in this country. And I think anyone who wants to be part of it can easily find the groups doing that. And I think within the German left, there's some really big political battles that we need to be having out, and discussions that we need to have. I think like the German left, as I've experienced it, is very afraid of having serious discussions, like vehement discussions that might get heated and it might be like unpleasant and difficult, but like have to happen politically.
Particularly introspective ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Israel-Palestine is definitely one of those key issues that's splitting the left. It's not necessarily the key issue. It's also tied into like a bunch of bigger things, like whether we believe that America is a bringer of progress or the thing holding progress back in the world. Closely tied in with that. But like this is work that needs to be done right now in order to create some kind of alternative that can actually be an alternative to the so-called alternative.
Oh yeah, that's their name, isn't it? Just call them AfD. I just forgot what it stands for. It doesn't really mean anything anymore, does it? It's just like the one guy who's still voting for the AfD because he hates the euro. Like I want to know that.
I think also some AfD person was got in trouble for using a Nazi slogan that also happens to have the same abbreviation. I think it's like Alles für Deutschland.
Oh. Has it been a dog whistle this whole time?
It might be. I'm not sure about that one.
That sucks, though. If it couldn't be, because 2013 AfD before Pegida was just like, we're a bunch of nerds against the euro. Like I refuse to believe.
Yeah,
that.
I think that they legitimate. I don't think that their name is.
Yeah.
They do think that they're the alternative for Germany. Yeah.
There's a lot of alternatives for Germany.
There are. Yeah.
It's not that one. All right. So, as we said earlier, we will link to the article in the description. That will hopefully be out. And if it's not out, it will be linked when it is. And you can check back later. Some of you take like 3 weeks to listen to this episode, and then you tweet at us, and I'm like, what the fuck are you referencing? And I don't know, because I've moved on and recorded like 8 episodes since then. But Michael, where can people find you and your lovely work?
On too many social media platforms because the landscape has been splintering.
Yep.
But my Twitter is still active. Who knows how long that'll last? And you can find everything else through there. I have a website that collects pretty much all my texts, which is mylastname.net.
Cool.
Maybe you can link to that too.
Will do. And okay, thing I do have to shout out is that we have to start promoting now is GYROVISION 2024. The ticket website is up for that. As it currently stands, there is a boycott against Eurovision. So what I recommend is do not watch it. Come to our thing instead, where we will be watching all the music videos. We will do an internal vote from the people who show up.
I will do a performance of your favorite Eurovision songs. I don't know.
we have to come up with a halftime act.
Yeah. All I saw was that then someone wrote a comment on Patreon saying that they wanted an interpretation of every song from me.
Yeah.
And you know what? You may get that.
Absolutely. We will be. I'm currently looking at trying to make sequined cargo shorts. It's very difficult. No one has ever thought of making sequined cargo shorts before. And I'm talking like 2000s Alien Ant Farm music video ill-fitting cargo shorts, but covered in rhinestones. It's not been done. I was on Shein, that Chinese horror fast fashion website. It's not on there either. And so, yeah, I'm trying to make that happen. But anyway, looping it back to the actual promo, snappy professional work, GYROVISION 2024, link in the description where you can buy tickets to come to the live show in Berlin. There will be limited spaces, but we will also stream on Eurovision. The entire night is a fundraiser for Medical Aid Palestine. The venue has agreed that all the money made at the bar will go to charity. The ticket sales go to charity. We will have a donation bucket. We are possibly selling black metal logo t-shirts with the word GYROVISION written on it in a fucked way that you can't read because it's black metal.
I want 6 of those shirts. They're so cool. They're such a cool t-shirt. I don't want to wear my own band shirt. So
I will be doing that.
Yeah.
It'll be sequin cargo shorts, black metal GYROVISION t-shirts. So yeah, come on to that. Tickets, I believe, are €22 for 5 hours of entertainment for charity. So
it's not. Yeah, don't complain about the price. Exactly.
Our live shows are usually like free or like €2 or €5 or something. This one we're asking for money because it's not for us. All right, link to that in the description. Get tickets while possible.
Where is it?
It is in. I've forgotten. It's in a film school that has agreed to allow us to use their space. It's in Neukölln.
Okay, it's like right near the Ringbahn.
It's right near the Ringbahn, yeah.
Okay, yeah, right near S-Bahn Neukölln, I think.
Yeah, it's like in between S-Bahn Neukölln and Sonnenallee.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And
a no-go zone according to like
absolutely. From what I read in Der Spiegel from that guy who has a mohawk today, yeah, absolutely.
Sasha Lobo.
Lobo, yeah.
Fucking idiot.
What do you write this time? Okay, no.
Yeah.
We don't have time. We simply do not have time. All right. We will catch you on the bonus feed. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.